From Informa Tech Target, I'm Beth Pariseau, and this is IT Ops Query. This podcast distills the signal from the noise about enterprise software development and platform engineering. Each week, we'll talk to expert guests about the latest tech industry news and trends that engineering and IT leaders need to know. Don't forget to subscribe to IT Ops Query for more conversations on AI and the future of the enterprise digital workspace. Brett Smith is Distinguished Software Developer at AI and Data Management Software and Services company SAS. 9 of his 13 years with that company have been spent focused on software supply chain security, managing DevSecOps and compliance for a 3,000 developer organization. Within the company's internal development platform, Brett has worked with tools such as JFrog Artifactory, Curation, X-Ray, and Advanced Security, as well as Software Bill of Materials, or SBOMs, and the Supply Chain Levels for Software Artifacts, or SALSA, framework. According to his LinkedIn profile, Brett's mandate is to exceed the requirements of the NIST Secure Software Development Framework, as documented in Special Publication 800-218, including its AI security addendum. Thanks for taking the time to chat today, Brett.
Hey, it's good to see you again, Beth. Glad to be out.
Likewise. Alrighty. So, first, fill us in on your internal development platform. How long has it been in place? What's in the toolbox? And how has it evolved over the years?
So we were having this talk yesterday, and I called it 5 years old, and it turns out it's 10 years old in the current state that it's in. It started as Jenkins and Garrett with Artifactory in the middle 10 years ago. So JFrog early was involved. And as it's moved through the organic growth that happens in a platform, we added a templating system, we added a database API, REST API that handles dependencies, compositions of software. So one of the things that we run into is that we sell a box of Legos, and the customer comes in and the customer can order the X-Wing kit. Right. So I've built this giant box of Legos, all these different colors, all these different pieces. And then the customer orders the X-Wing kit, which is only a fraction of them. And so we needed to be able to tell what that fraction was. And so as it evolved, we added a templating system because we started building RPMs, and no one should ever make a developer write RPM spec files unless you're some sort of maniac like me. You don't like those type of things. And as we continued on, we added support for Ubuntu, Debian packages, because the IoT of things. And then we added OCI images. Some people call them Docker images, but it's the OCI image. And we added that, and it's all in the templating system so that the developers get to use a data-driven YAML file that drives all of this through the templating system to do the packaging and things like that. And developers love YAML files almost as much as they love RPM specs. It's a great thing. But the thing about structured data is that you can audit structured data. And so, the templating system was a big change, and that was about 7 years ago. So the next big change hit about 5 years ago. The executive order came out 2019. Google released SALSA, SLSA, and in June, so like right afterwards. I immediately, one other part I left out. In 2019, the boss, the CTO at the time, Brian Harris, said, we want to go full CI/CD. And at the time, we were doing quarterly ship events, kind of standard practice for, the time. And I said, what if we build an event-driven system and we can ship software when it's ready? And so we built out an event-driven platform. We have since open sourced the parts of it. I'm in the process of trying to make it more robust, so maybe you could use the open source as more than a teaching mechanism for event-driven architecture. But basically, the whole thing's event-driven now, and we have a giant gating system. And basically, as you pass tests, gates, you get promoted up the system and out to shipped. So that was a drastic change 5 years ago, and it took a long time to implement all that. Now, in there, we had the executive order and we had SALSA. And I immediately jumped on the SALSA train, version 01, which is my favorite version. And some of my friends are maintainers of SALSA, and they give me a hard time about me harping on this all the time. I took that and sat down with the NIST 813 and ISO 27001 and figured out a security plan that we were going to implement. We spent the next several years implementing that security plan, and we got really serious about it about 2.5 years ago when the executive order became, a real, like the government entities could, require
Mhm.
it. And
Mhm.
so we got very serious about it then. And we
Mm.
used Salsa to really guide us into the security stuff that I've been doing for the past couple of years. 2023, we went out to Swamp Up,
Mm.
hang out with the JFrog peoples, and I saw a demo of curation and advanced security, and I came back and said, "Yep, we're putting that in." And so that's kind of how it's been.
Mm.
Artifactory has been the heart of in our pipeline since the beginning, right? But
Mhm.
as JFrog has given us more security tools, we've added them in to fill in gaps that we might have in security or places where we could improve. So that's what we've been up to.
Yeah. So why the focus on the artifact? There's some people who focus on source code for DevSecOps. There's others that say the artifact's the right place. Obviously, you seem in the artifact camp. So what's the advantage of focusing there for security?
Well, it's not just the artifact. Let's be clear. The piece that it's a hard story to tell. It's 10 years. So
Hmm.
we can't just divulge it all right now on the
Sure, sure.
podcast. But it's somewhere in there a few years ago, we brought Sneak in.
Okay.
And Sneak has been our SAST and our SCA.
Hmm.
And we gate really hard on SAST and SCA early in the pipeline. So we shifted very far left with that.
Mm.
We gave the developers have IDE plugins from Sneak. They also have IDE plugins from JFrog with advanced security. And so they have the ability, and we added Sonar Cube, right? So this really early in the development cycle, we're handling, SAST, vulnerabilities, CWE type stuff,
Mm.
and we're handling CVEs really early in the development cycle. And so we gate on those, and you can't get out until you've met the requirements for those. So yes, that's why there was a early emphasis on artifacts. And that was the guy who did that wasn't as concerned about security as the guy who runs it now. And yeah, I was both. So, but yeah, I basically had to go atone for my own mistake of my own, you know, unfortunate overlooking security. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's been an interesting journey. But so meeting the ISO 27001 and the NIST really made us focus on all aspects, right? So, there's other things that go on. I mean, we don't have a hermetic build system like I want, but we're pretty close. And so if you want to go ship to the customer, there's one door in, and
Mm.
then you go through our approved pipeline
Hmm.
that is, EO compliant, which also is all of the other acronyms you can think of for the EU, Australia, India.
Mm.
I mean, all the government regulations and financial institution regulations. We go through all of that in the pipeline, and then you come out the other side, and we go, "Hey, you passed all this, you're safe." And so that's kind of how we've done it. And it took us 2 years, and we're still working on it.
Yeah.
And the goal now is to, improve, right? We met the requirements, but it can always be better. So
And, at least from the people I've talked to, developers seem to love having to code securely about as much as they love RPM
yeah, spec files. Yeah,
spec files and YAML files. So, how do you get developers to buy into that process?
that's a really good question, Beth. And I tell you what, if you can tell me how, we will. There's two camps. There is the you must,
Hmm.
and we gate, and your stuff doesn't ship. And
Mm.
that's not always, if you've ever raised children, dogs, cats, that is not usually the best way to win.
Yeah.
The best way to win is to have security champions.
Mm.
And so at one point we had security champions on every team, and they were the vanguard for us. But the executive order was my favorite part of it to get them to buy in,
Mm.
because I was like, well, we have government contracts,
Hmm.
right? You guys like your bonuses, right? And they're like, yeah, we like our bonuses. I said, well, if you guys don't follow these policies, we don't
Mm.
have government contracts, which make up a substantial part of our revenue, which hurts your bonus. And that one really worked.
Sure.
That
Sure.
one's the best one, right? I mean, look, let's be clear. I mean, security breaches cost revenue. Okay. They
Mhm.
hurt not only the money stream, but they hurt the image of the company. And so avoiding those is very, very important.
Mm.
And so that kind of message goes on. And then, between you and I, when you stop like standing on your soapbox about security, everything starts to get amnesia and roll back. And so now we're at a spot where it's time for us to remind everyone that, we have a lot of security to do. And like this week, we've got our infrastructure pipeline audit. Everybody
Mm.
loves that on my team.
Mm.
There's, 180 JIRA issues for, over 1,000 endpoint machines, servers, places where we have security that has to be audited.
Wow.
So yeah, now you're like, well, maybe I will write an RPM spec file.
Right?
Right.
So, given you mentioned the executive order, obviously there was a change in administration in 2025, and there have been some changes to the federal government's stance on cybersecurity, including for AI. Since then, has that had any effect on your work?
No. So, and you're going to be like, well, what do you mean? I mean, that they walked back on some stuff. Well,
Mm.
just because they walked back on some stuff doesn't mean it's not important.
Mm.
And when I first set out on this journey with Salsa version .1,
Mm-hmm.
right, which was ridiculously strict
Mm.
on getting to level 4, which is what we were shooting for at the time, we did that because of the executive order, but we should have done it anyway. And so the executive order shouldn't have been necessary. It's like when your parents say you have to be home by 11 because, you need to get a good night's sleep to work the next day. You
Mm.
should have been home by 11 so you could get a good night's sleep, go to work next day, and your parents shouldn't have had to mandate it.
Mm.
Probably a horrible analogy, but still, it's the best I could do on the spot. Um, the once you take ISO 27001 and Salsa, and then you start to implement all those, you cover everything in the NIST. Right. And then
Mm.
you also cover everything from the EU, DORA and the GDRP and those type of things, and the Australian Cyber Act. You cover all those. And once you get to that point, why would you roll back? Right. I mean, that doesn't make any sense as an
Mm.
engineer. I mean, I think that's what it boils down to is we always have these conversations and we talk about, what we did. I'm an IC, I'm an individual contributor, and
Mm.
I don't look at things through any lens other than return on investment, engineering focus, and, what do we get by doing this? And what's our missed opportunity if we don't do this?
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes I lose track of, the people's feelings and things like that. But, I'm an engineer and that's what I do. So,
Right.
and so if, you wanted a bigger story out of this, you would go, well, you should have security so that your company looks good on the outside. And I look at
Mm.
it as like, we should have security so we're secure. Right.
Yeah.
Really basic, but still.
Y- you'd think, and there are times when you hear about yet another breach that, you're asking yourself, like, what's it going to take? You know?
Right.
And
And so
yeah,
the big thing you're worried about is you don't want to be that dude.
right,
You do not want to be that company
right.
that is SolarWinds, and you force the government to make a change.
Mm.
Do not be there. Okay. I want to make sure that we are never in the news like that, if you know what I mean. And, there is that type of fear. Now, that's not the best reason to do it. The best reason to do it is because you should do it.
Mm.
For your customers, right? I mean, we have a reputation to uphold, and our
Mm-hmm.
customers need to know that we're doing everything we can to provide them with secure software,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's been some things in the industry that I've left a interesting, how do I put it? The MCP specification
Yeah.
has more security holes in it than Swiss cheese. And Anthropic's original intent was to give us a way for agents, little non-deterministic gremlins, to wreck our lives by having access to our backend APIs.
Mm.
What they didn't do is they didn't consider the security ramifications of developers who, I don't know how many developers you know, but if you give a developer an API key, they will check it into a Git repo. They will also paste it into random things and let it be passed straight through to the backend APIs because it's an API key. What do I care? Now, my API key is a little dangerous. I'm, org admin on 5 of our GitHub orgs. I have root access on almost every box in the infrastructure. I think I have to protect my API key, and I shouldn't go pasting it into random MCP servers. So there's been some things that have set us back, basically. As an industry, we made great strides in security the past couple of years, and between you and I mean, this AI thing has set us back, 10 years or 5 years, whatever you want to call it. I know Anthropic's working on it, so don't think that, and not just Anthropic, now that all the companies are behind the MCPs. And I've seen the new one they just released, and it ruined one of my talks because they released it the Friday. I gave the talk on Thursday, and they released it on Friday, and it added some extra security after I lambasted them on a Thursday welcome to the talk circuit, right?
They heard you.
Yeah. Right. I told them when I did the original talk in September, I said, by the time this thing airs, it's going to be wrong. And it was. Yeah. So the AI is take everything we've done in the past 3 years and compress it down to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And this is what we're dealing with. That's the magnitude of what AI has done in our supply chains, in our development life cycles, all that. You run as fast as you can to get in front of it, right? I mean, I'm not a young guy anymore. You see my gray hair. And I can't run as fast as I used to, but I am running to get in front of all this as best I can. If you wanted a cool story, I'll give you a cool story. My team, I love my team. They're brilliant. We were doing our Jira planning, and a ticket came up, and the ticket said, we have this really complicated way of managing Azure AD groups to back our GitHub teams, right? All that's automated. And so everything's automated, but it's all automated how we manage our teams for, because of least privileged and need to know, right? You don't need write access to some of my repositories. You need read access, right? And if you want to contribute, you have to go fill out a ticket to get put on that team so that you can, contribute for that project. And then at some point we audit that and we pop you off of it because you haven't contributed in 30 days. So they came to me and they said, well, this is a really complicated thing and we have to do this crazy double lookup. And I was going to research using AI to do that. And I told them, I said, no, please do not use AI for anything that could be done deterministically, especially when it comes to security and something that is a checkbox on the executive order, right? Please don't do that. And then they all got, they got hurt a little bit, right? Because everybody wants to play with AI right now. That's the fun thing to do. And I was like, go find something else to play with AI with and keep security out of it until, next year. Right. And we'll talk about it again next year. I mean, these models are moving so fast that there's a possibility that in March, this conversation you and I are having is completely irrelevant.
Sure. Yeah. It's going fast, for sure.
I mean, eventually we're going to run out of electricity and power and it'll top off, but
in some places that's already happening from what I've heard. Yeah. So twofold question. Is there potential good use for AI in security, do you think, software supply chain security? And, whether it's AI or not, what is sort of the biggest unsolved challenge that you're looking at heading into a new year?
So that's a really big question.
Yeah.
And I would say that a couple of things that I'm running into right now is everyone's very excited about AI and everyone's very excited to use it. And it is giving us security amnesia. And the security amnesia is turning into me trying to herd cats into a pen, possibly with a flamethrower. The herding the cats has become very hard because when we turned on, and I know I keep harping on MCP, but it's a good example. We turned on MCP support for our GitHub Copilot. And the next demo days we had 2 weeks later, everybody and their brother's writing an MCP server, and no one read any of my documentation on the security. Now, I came back from Open Source Summit, and all we talked about was AI and MCP, and some open source stuff, but mostly MCP and AI were the big topics. So I came back and immediately was like, okay, I'm going to implement MCP in our pipeline and see how much it can help us, right? Because our pipeline's kind of hard. The observability part's hard. Maybe AI can help me with the observability part. And I built out this thing, and it worked really well sometimes. Half the time. It wasn't, it was all right. And I picked up the GitHub MCP server, and I grabbed it and I configured it off of the walkthrough on the internet, because that's what we would do, right? And I made a special token for the MCP server that only had read access to everything. And I copy and pasted all the instructions to set up the MCP server in my IDE. And it made a PR for me in a repository. It was great. After I had asked some questions, it made a PR for me. I had cut and pasted the wrong GitHub token variable, and it was using my GitHub token.
Ooh.
I think you heard me earlier say that I'm org admin on 5 orgs, including the Copilot org. I could have literally deleted my own AI. So that happened like week 1 when I got back from Open Source Summit, and I was like, I should take a step back and let's review all the security. So I spent the next month going through all the ways to all the security holes in the MCP and what you could do. And the list ended up being the same list we've always had.
Sure.
It had nothing to do with MCP. It was just straight up security, right? And MCP was just letting you do it faster with non-deterministic weapons. So I put that into a talk, put that in the papers. I've given that talk a couple of times now, and I distributed it out, and I told all my team, I said, go read this. And then now we're struggling to get that information to the rest of the development teams, right? Because we're a platform team.
Right.
And, we don't work directly on the product much, right? Sometimes we do, but most of the time we don't. We provide you the platform so you, the developer, can go build our product that makes us money. So the getting messages from that platform level up into the developers is tough. I've been told, hey, you guys gave me 20 links to go read. I don't have time to read those. And one of those 20 links was MCP security. So, that's the thing that we run into a lot is distributing the information and getting the buy-in. And if we go back to the security champions, that's probably the carrot. Well, actually, the carrot was the executive order and the revenue. But the honey pot would be, hey, this is cool. We should do this.
Yeah.
Another thing that so real quick, you did, I rambled on, and I apologize. So let me get back to the AI of it all. One of the things you can do with the AI is, let's pretend you scanned everything, right? Everything you build in the pipeline gets scanned, and everything in the pipeline is built by the pipeline, right? You've got an executive order compliant ISO 27001 pipeline. And if you build that pipeline with that pipeline, everything that goes into the pipeline meets the order. Turtles all the way down.
Yes.
Right. And so one of the things you can do is, if you scan everything in that pipeline, right, with SAST and CVEs, you can take the SAST results and tie them back to the CVE results and decide on what the priority is to fix things. Now, as a human, it's kind of tough to go, hey, I've got CVE, blah, 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 and it references CWE, blah, 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 right? And then you go through, how am I supposed to go through? We build like 8,000 packages a week.
Yeah.
So how am I supposed to go through 8,000 SAST security scans and SCA scans and pair up? Does this CVE that has a CWE, is that CWE in my code? Right. And it's a reachability question. And yes, companies like Sneak do a really good job with that. Advanced Security can help you with that. But when you've got 8,000 packages, AI is probably a good idea. Because AI doesn't sleep. It doesn't get tired. It does lose its brain. But, amnesia is a thing, right? And we've been talking about it all podcast now. And AI has it, right? Your context window is 128K in Copilot, and that's not very big. My first computer had a hard disk that was almost 128K, and I thought it was the biggest thing I'd ever had. The greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
So, and we're talking, again, we're back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are some things that, I've run into.
Yeah. I'm just a couple things, right?
Yeah. We're trying to keep it light, right?
Yeah. Interesting times, as they say. Cool. Well, it sounds like you got your work cut out for you, but it also sounds like your organization actually does have more of a handle on this stuff than most that I've talked to. A lot of times people are still stuck on the carrot and stick conversations. And why is this not just insurance, right? Can't we just hope it won't happen to us?
Yeah. When leadership's behind the movement, it helps, right? And our leadership has been completely behind our security movement to the point where the thing that we did 2.5 years ago is that we fired up what we called a security swarm. And I was a security swarm lead, and I got to go grab whoever I wanted to help me make sweeping changes across our supply chain to get to be executive order compliant. And I keep mentioning the executive order, but we all know that it's all the orders, right? It's all the different things that have come out. And, leadership was on top of that. And when it comes from the top down, it is easier. If that makes any sense for you. So a lot of times what happens in organizations is that the security team is at the bottom. And as a bottom, you can only influence so far up. Now, one of the differences in what we were up to is that I recruited people who were technically proficient, understood the development cycle, were respected developers, on top of being security professionals. And then you bridge that gap between the developer who's like, you're a security guy, what do you know about development?
Yeah.
You bridge that gap and you're like, no, look, no, I do this all the time. Remember, I'm how we got here.
Yeah.
I'm the reason why we have to go fill in these security holes. Okay. I know all about rapid development and POCs becoming prod.
Yeah.
And so, that type of, a little bit of that clout helps. And so I would, advice to, security teams is to make sure that you fully understand what you're asking developers to do based on what they want to do. And we know that what they want to do and what you want them to do are two different things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So on that note, we are about out of time here, but thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience in this important field.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you for tuning in to IT Ops Query. To learn more about enterprise software development and platform engineering, explore our content on Informa Tech Target sites. Find us on YouTube at our channel, Eye on Tech. Subscribe to our podcast to receive the latest episodes as they drop. And if you liked what you heard today, give us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Thank you for joining us.